Move on now to controversial plans unveiled at the start of the week by Birmingham City Council. We have a look here at the local papers. This was the reaction there. Goodbye Motor City Brum. And it also drew plenty of attention in the national papers as well, with coverage in lots of them. We can see here the Daily Mail went with Brum's War on Brums. That's a bit of a classic. I'm not sure it's quite up there with the hamster, but there you go. Now, of course, this is all about the council's ambitious plan to cut pollution and stop private vehicles from driving through the tunnels under the city over the next decade. Cars will instead be restricted to the ring road, with only buses and bikes allowed through it. Well, earlier I spoke to the man behind the plan, Birmingham Councillor Waseem Zaffar, and asked him if he was trying to stop people driving their cars.
Well, we're certainly trying to reduce the over-reliance of private car in our city. We've declared a climate emergency, we've got a climate crisis across the world, we've got people dying prematurely because of high levels of air pollution, we have the biggest air quality problem outside London. So we've got to look at more sustainable ways for people and goods to travel across our city. We were once known as a motor city, but we've really got to reinvent ourselves as the public transport city.
So is this the death of the motor city then?
I wouldn't say it's the death of the motor city, but car will no longer be king in our city, and sustainable forms of transport, whether it's walking, cycling, and particularly public transport, whether it's buses, the metro extensions that we're currently building, or the bus rapid transits we will introduce, will have far more priority on our highway infrastructure.
I mean, nobody is in favour of dirty air. Everybody wants clean air, and as you say, there is a climate emergency that people are aware of. But are you sort of doing this backwards, sort of announcing this plan, potentially scaring people, scaring businesses, before you've actually got that infrastructure in place?
So the Birmingham Transport Plan is a 10-year vision, and we totally understand we've got to improve the infrastructure before we implement some aspects of it. However, we have started already. We've seen Birmingham and the West Midlands buck the national trend when it comes to bus patronage, whereas bus usage is going down across the country. There were 8 million more journeys last year.
In the West Midlands, that is because, and particularly in Birmingham, that is because other forms of public transport are either dire or non-existent. I mean, really, that is the reason why people are reliant on buses here, is because we don't have the tube and we don't have trams that extend outside of particular routes between the Black Country and Birmingham city centre.
Buses are absolutely vital in our city. They're an important cog in our city. And what we're trying to do is create an environment where buses get priority. And we've put a number of interventions in the last 12 months, in the last 5 years, which is showing results and which is clearly showing that people are starting to use buses. But we need to do a lot more. Reliability clearly needs to improve on our bus network, and when we start to take space away from the car and give it to buses, we will see massive improvements in reliability, which people absolutely are desperate for.
So is that what we're changing to, just a city full of buses? I mean, you and I both know, I get the bus sometimes into Birmingham city centre. You and I both know that at the moment it's quicker to get into your car than to get on the bus.
Not necessarily. I think at times I use the bus too, and I travel from inner city Birmingham into the city centre. And on one particular route, it takes me 7 minutes from where I live into.
Well, I mean, it will depend on geographically where you are, obviously.
And at times I see traffic and congestion on the main highway, but the buses take advantage of the bus lanes. And we hope that will encourage others and nudge them onto public transport too. Congestion in our city is costing the economy £12 million a week. And when we have the massive increase in population by 2031, there'll be hundreds of thousands of further journeys on our road network, and our road network can't handle it. So we can't create extra space. It's about how we can use the space that we've got in a far better way, and taking space away from private car and prioritising public transport will help. But we're also introducing bus rapid transit, the Sprint network across the city in the very near future, and also one of our key priorities is where we can introduce the metro extensions.
Ah, right, sorry, we're back. And Eddie, are you in favour of this?
I think it's an unusual plan, to say the least. I think Birmingham has been controlled by the Labour Party for most of my life, and they've waited until there's an emergency to try to do something about it, and what they're trying to do seems to not make sense in many ways. So I think there should be a transitional element, as you said in the piece. They're trying to frighten people. They're probably frightening businesses as well as ordinary commuters. What they need to do is make sure there's a smoother transition. We all want to breathe clean air, so let's find a way to get to that position in a way that's as smooth and acceptable for people as possible. And so for example, I think Andy has worked with National Express to make sure bus fares have stayed frozen for 3 years now. We've got a fleet of better quality buses, they've got Wi-Fi on them, things like that. So you need to encourage people out of their cars, not just terrify them or stop them.
Indeed, but there is a climate emergency, and this is Birmingham City Council taking the lead and kind of making a stand. Is that not a positive thing?
Birmingham Council finally doing something. They've controlled the council for most of the 50 years of my life, and now at the last minute they're panicking to do something just as we're actually moving towards people being in electric cars. What a strange position that I could own an electric car and not be able to drive through the city centre, causing no smog or fumes at all because Birmingham decided to do something different.
Of course, there was a Lib Dem Conservative coalition which ran Birmingham City Council
Briefly.
for best part, well, quite a decent amount of time, and they didn't particularly take any action in this area.
Well, so Labour's plan now is to just shut up shop and make people have longer journeys stuck on a ring road, probably going nowhere, causing even more fumes to the people who are close to that. That's not a good plan.
What do you think of this?
Well, look, we've got to reclaim our urban spaces and we've got to clean the air, and I think it's absolutely right. And I'm really glad, actually, that the council is doing this, because we've got to have the conversation. It's a 10-year strategy. I applaud, actually, the Cabinet, the leader and Waseem Zaffar for bringing this ahead, because, actually, if we don't get people consulting and talking about this, how are we going to shift minds? How are we going to make sure people don't use their cars and actually do use public transport? I use the buses. I accept that, absolutely, they've got to be reliable.
Can we
trust
them to get that done, though? Can we trust very quickly?
Well, at the moment, that's down to National Express. I mean, I myself have struggled with National Express, actually, because we've seen routes cancelled. We've seen so many people raise concerns about our buses. They're just not good enough, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm afraid we are going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time for this.